and religion.
Evolution and creationism? I mean,
No.
you can't have both, right?
No, you can't.
Okay, so there is a fine line. If
It's not so fine.
I think it is a fine line.
It's not a fine line. One is definitely... Well, if you mean if they're completely different, yeah. And you slice it down the middle, there's a fine line.
Well,
but to say that creationism has anything to do with science is absolutely wrong, and we're getting off topic a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, you want to talk about what public schools should teach. I don't know that maybe they should.
I don't know. That's what we're discussing.
Maybe they shouldn't teach evolution if they're not going to teach creationism. But then, if they're not going to do that,
God!
I mean, there's so many religions that they need to avoid, right? If that's the goal, is to avoid religion. So that's going to be tough. That's a problem.
It's not really to avoid religion per se. It's the idea that creationism is science. It's not science. I think that's the issue with most people.
Okay.
Is you can't teach a divine intervention as a scientific principle.
Okay. And you think the Christians agree with that?
Most Christians don't agree with that.
Okay.
No.
And I guess
but
that's
some
my point.
do.
And that's my point.
But that's not. But it's not science. Now, if you want to teach it as philosophy, maybe that could be something you could work at.
Okay.
And call it religious philosophy, or I mean, something different than science. But they want to have it as science. I object to that.
Okay, that's fine.
So, anyways, we got off the track there.
Well, I don't think it was off the track. But.
Well, okay. Well, what about funding? Who should pay for public education? Most states use property tax. Some states use a sales tax or some type of tax on people to fund public schools. Now, some would argue, and as we saw from our history lesson, some of the taxation were just taxed on people that had kids in school.
Yeah.
So in other words, if you had your kid in school, you were assessed a fee or you paid a tax. Do you think senior citizens should be paid, or should be paying a property tax that pays for school?
Well, I mean, ideally, I don't know ideally, but probably they've already paid taxes if they had children going to school.
If
they were paying taxes at that time.
Certainly.
Yeah, should they be responsible for public schools now that they have really,
They've already contributed, let's say.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Should they continue to pay for that? Yes or no?
No.
Okay, why?
Well, they're not using the service, but that's
do they benefit as a society?
That's a fundamental problem with all government programs.
But the philosophy is, do they benefit? Does society benefit as a whole from supporting public education?
Well, is a 90-year-old woman going to benefit from a kindergartner just coming into school that's going to take another 13 years to get through school, right? I mean, yeah.
Well, I don't know.
Will she benefit from that
kid? But we're not
kid?
necessarily talking about a 90-year-old. We could be talking about a 62-year-old.
We could be.
That's retired.
Well, so, I mean, where's the line, right? You just all retired
I know.
people?
So, but you could go and you say, well, yeah, it's to the greater good, and it's wonderful that we all pitch in to pay for all of the society's benefit for education.
Yeah, and that's where we are.
I mean, you could say the same thing. Does that 90-year-old woman going to benefit from roads? Probably not. Probably not driving.
Maybe not, I don't know.
You don't know, but I mean, is she going to in 10 years? Probably not. But she pays taxes to pay for roads and sewers and police and fire and all those types of things. Those benefit society as a whole and not the individual. I mean, that's one of the concepts of government.
Right.
Should they pay for that?
Also a fundamental flaw with government.
Well, yeah.
But look, we wouldn't be able to afford to educate these children if the 90-year-old retired woman wasn't paying her fair share, right?
But what we could do is we could look at education and say, how can we run it better? How can we reduce the tax burden on the people in the society?
Other than privatizing.
And I'm not saying private schools should be, eliminated. That's a debate that's right now before the the country, and it has been for the last 15 or 20 years. Magnet schools, vouchers, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and it was talked about in the presidential debate last week. Romney's plan basically is to keep the tax funding, but that you call it a voucher program.
I don't call it that.
Basically, well, you just did, but
I didn't call it that. I just related what the term of it is called.
Basically, his plan would.
It's like saying communism. I didn't make up that term. It's out there.
But if you call okay, never mind. His plan would basically send the tax money along with students that go to private schools.
Right. I mean, one of the gripes of parents that send their kids to private school is that not only do we have to pay tuition, we have to pay taxes.
They still pay taxes for public schools.
And I can remember in the late 60s going to a private school, which was Proposal C at the time. Parochial schools were actually getting tax dollars.
Yeah.
And there was a referendum and a campaign that said we're going to eliminate that. And the Catholic churches and all private schools were fighting that tooth and nail. And I can imagine the parents were too, because their tuition rates were going to go through the roofs because they weren't going to get supplemented by
but they were still going to have to pay the tax. And and
they were still going to pay tax.
I doubt the tax rate was going down. So
right. So should they get a break on that? I don't know. I guess you gotta look at what is the benefit of educating the people in the country, and is that happening? I mean, we could spend another half hour just talking about the education,
if the
quality of the education is working.
Yeah.
You can go out and we could do this if we had the time. We could go out on the street and ask recent high school graduates certain questions that are fundamental, and I think we'd be appalled at some of the answers.
Yeah, and so far and
lack of education that you get.
We're really just talking about public K through 12 schools. Public colleges, universities is a whole nother issue. I guess on another show.
Well, yeah.
On another show, we can talk about the college and university being publicly funded if we want, but
right.
I don't think that's working as well as it could either. I guess it doesn't matter because half of those students coming out of college can't find jobs right now anyway. So maybe we should just stop education for a while so people aren't looking for jobs.
Just sort of go to the dark ages.
Yeah.
Just be illiterate and stupid and wander around, and I think that's
that's what you think would happen if this was all handled privately within the family structure. Possible. But
I guess speaking for myself personally, I don't think I could handle teaching my kid anything. For one thing, she doesn't listen to anything I say.
Yeah, well,
I don't have the patience for it.
And you work.
And I work full time.
Sure.
So
you send her to.
I send her to a public school.
You send her to. Well, you do now, but you could
did.
if
well, yeah, she graduated
ideally
high school.
You could send her to a group of individuals who do have the time to educate students and want to educate
and
other children.
Pay them for that service?
And you pay them for that.
Huh. Yeah. That sounds like a private school.
And you can shop around, and if one isn't as good as the other on a, cost versus quality, however you decide, whatever your daughter deserves, right? How well she's behaving the day you enroll her, whatever you want to use.
If I let her out of the dungeon.
If you let her, or you could keep her in the dungeon, that would be your choice.
Yeah, the thing I don't understand are the poor guys that, and I know some that send their kids to private schools and, also pay, taxes. So they're sort of being double dipped into because they're paying for their kids' education as well as other people's education. That doesn't seem fair to me.
No, it's not.
I don't know that we'll ever come up with a good answer for that.
I think there's a good answer. I just don't think that a solution will be implemented anytime soon. Definitely, Romney doesn't plan to do anything about that.
You have a soundbite?
I do not have a soundbite.
Okay.
So, we are getting close to our time here, though.
Yeah.
So
we're not going to answer all these questions in a half-hour time frame.
No.
So until next time, we thank you for coming, listening to our drivel.
Yeah, hopefully it was a bit entertaining, a bit educational. This was a free, private education for you. This is...
it was.
The show is definitely...
There was no tax dollars.
Definitely not subsidized by tax money.
There was no tax dollars used in this broadcast. And I think you can probably
you can
tell.
Well, I mean, I don't know.
We're no Sesame Street.
We are no Sesame Street.
Which is
those shows on
supplemented
NPR are pretty entertaining. I don't think they're allowed to have any inflection in their voice, though.
Are you plugging NPR?
I'll plug NPR. I mean,
they talk very quiet.
I own stake in NPR.
They whisper. We all
right?
do.
Yeah, right, exactly. So
it's tax money.
You know, this isn't taxpayer funded. If we do live shows and accept phone calls, I may use my Obama phone for the phone calls.
You don't have an Obama phone.
I don't have an Obama phone.
I have 7. I have 7 right now.
You would think that
I have one for every day of the week, and I named them.
You would think that would be an indication of fraud. But I
don't have 7.
I think that's just part of the plan.
I don't have 7.
If you want
I
7,
don't have
you
fraud.
can have 7.
I lost them all in a boating accident.
I mean, you get a referral bonus if you refer a friend to sign up for the Obama phone. You get like an extra 50 minutes a month. Isn't that hilarious?
You're making that up.
No, that's true.
That's absolutely true?
That's accurate.
I don't believe you're...
Yeah, it's pretty pathetic. But we can talk about that on a different show if we haven't already. So, all right, until next time, thanks for listening to At Odds.